Everybody, this is Josh Schachnow, Canadian immigration lawyer and CEO at Visto.ai for another exciting episode of the Canadian Immigration Pros podcast. Today, I'm happy to be joined by RCIC Ronak Patel, founder of Rutan Immigration. Ronak, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Josh.
Can you start, Ronak, just by giving a quick introduction about yourself?
So I'm Ronak Patel. As Josh mentioned, I'm in RCHA since 2017. Apart from that, I came in Canada in summer of 2012 to pursue my master's of software engineering. Worked in the software space for 5 years as a software developer and a project manager. Alongside, I was also practicing the immigration services. So I wanted to practice this profession legally. So I studied immigration law, cleared my RCHA diploma program, cleared the exam, and since 2017, I've been functioning as a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Until 2020, I was juggling my roles between a project manager as well as an RCIC, after which I eventually resigned as it was difficult to manage both my business as well as my job. So I have been focusing full time into this business now since 2020 until now.
Got
Yes.
it. And one of the big topics I want to touch on today, Ronak, and it's interesting because you have a very similar perspective because I started in the immigration industry right around the same time. And suffice to say, a lot has changed, right? Especially since around 2017. Can you just give people maybe like a 30,000 foot view on especially the type of immigration you work on? And just generally
Mhm.
speaking, what does the Canadian immigration industry look like right now?
So far, my experience into Canadian immigration space dates back to 2009. So I have been into this industry for 15 long years. So I have seen this industry growing from the actual student partners program since 2009 up until now. So back then when I came to Canada in summer of 2012, what I see now, a lot has changed, to be quite honest. And currently, our focus has been for these many years, we largely focus on student immigration, international student recruitment, but also alongside, we also focus on temporary residency services such as work permits, permanent residency, and other immigration services, like other service areas such as spousal sponsorship, spousal open work permit, and related. Yes. So what we see right now, the situation is way much different than what it used to be in 2012 and the years back then. Now, quite frankly speaking, it has been very difficult, not just for individuals to realize how they can achieve their permanent residency, but alongside, how shall I say, whether they really want to get permanent residency or not.
Right.
So, yeah.
Which is interesting, right? Because for a long time, that was never really a question, right? Canada for so long has been so pro-immigration, and Canada for so
Correct.
long has probably been maybe in the top 3, at worst, maybe the top 5 global destinations for international students that want to come study, maybe in the late 20 teens, probably in the top 2 or 3 spots every year, right? So can you
Yes.
talk a little
Yes.
bit about what have we seen? This is a loaded question, but over the last 1 or 2 years, obviously there's been a lot of changes. You don't have to go into specific rules because I've had plenty of episodes where we go specifically into the exact rule changes related to study
Mhm.
permits. But generally
Yeah.
speaking, what have you seen and why is that sentiment shifting? Why are students starting to even ask before they even apply for that study permit, hey, do I even want PR in Canada?
Yes. So quite frankly speaking, what have I seen for the past few years is that, uh, not to blame at the government though, but still I feel the government could have been more responsible and accountable for making revolutionary changes even during the times of COVID. Instead of monetizing international students, what I feel is that they should have been more cautious, more, how should I say, they should have lobbied provinces back then at that point of time and also worked more closely with schools, as in what they want versus what they needed. Because quite frankly speaking, again, I have witnessed that not all institutions. There are many, many very good institutions in Canada, but at the cost of some not so good institutions, it is the good institutions who have had to suffer. And because of so many, I mean, like, the influx of students was so exponential that we were not even ready to cater them. And I mean, I'm sure you have heard about housing crisis and jobs and whatnot. But I mean, we must go past these problems, and there are other problems that we need to cater now. And I still have a lot of hope and faith in the Canadian brand that I don't see in other countries. I just feel that Canada needs to become more ambitious and more like, how should I say? We should be more than just keyboard warriors, that just striking or like complaining behind our laptop screens, but not actually doing something about what we should do at this point of time.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean something needs to be done, and kind of what you're alluding to is like from my perspective there was just no strategy, right? It was years and years of open floodgates. Like you said, not much communication between the feds and the provinces. Some school, like you said, some schools were good, some schools were bad. Now all of them are suffering because of the bad
Mhm.
actors. But there really
Yep.
seemed to be no strategy, which is why everything eventually went to crap, right? What would you say are
Yes.
some of the key, like what were maybe the top one or two problems from those years that you think caused the biggest problems, which caused this big shift?
I think what we should have anticipated at that point of time is that a lot many countries were more, how should I say, more cautious to the immigration. Like if you can see about New Zealand, they wouldn't allow many international students to come at that point of time. And back then, I think Canada was the only country that would have allowed international students maybe to study online while they were not from and not inside Canada, and then they allowed them to enter as well. And this was one of the problems. But other issue, this was not such a big problem. But what other thing we could have addressed at that point of time, that the government should have consulted provinces and some very good institutions of those provinces and have seen that what is the demand back then in the province, and maybe cut short of certain regulations or made some interim changes that would have allowed like students studying in, let's say, healthcare programs to, how should I say, to enter the workforce while they were studying, while they were studying. So based on my experience in the Canadian education space, what I have seen as a difference between a university versus a college diploma is that universities provide you like a wholesome education, which is blended like theoretical as well as practical, versus colleges purely focuses largely on practical programs so that you can integrate into the workforce immediately. So I fairly saw that as a lack. Versus now everybody is talking about diploma mills, but we had anticipated this like in 2015, 2017, that something like this is bound to happen because you cannot turn cold shoulders to what was happening because at some levels, people knew, the scores knew. I don't know what the government was doing, but I think so. They also knew to some extent, and they should have done something about it. Even now, even today in 2025, I think we have a great chance to reposition Canada as a great brand. And I just think that we really need like ambitious, resilient leaders to make that drastic change. And it is still possible. I'm very confident on that.
It is still possible. I just, yeah, I mean, I hope we can have that leadership that does enact positive change because for what, 8, 9, 10 years, we haven't, right? Like you said, a lot could have been done. I think, as with most things, it comes down to money, right? The government was doing nothing because immigration numbers were growing and people were
Yes.
happy about it, right? If we talk about like 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, immigration numbers kept going up and the economy was doing well. And so the government was able to say, hey, our immigration is working because numbers are going up and Canada is doing well, right? What was happening on the ground, as you're alluding to, is people were just being pumped into these diploma mills that maybe should not have been. Some of the
Correct.
schools were okay, some of them were not. The schools weren't doing too much because their registration was going up every year. What happens when
Correct.
registration goes up? Tuition goes up, revenue goes up, everyone gets their bonuses, everybody's happy, right? So at that point, there
Yes.
was no incentive, even though from what I understand, the government was warned. I forget what it was. There was a report apparently that was sent or advice or a report that was given to the government around maybe like 2020, 2021 that said, hey, if you continue on this path, it's going to be disastrous because of A, B, and C.
Oh,
Apparently, they read it and did nothing. And then the inevitable happened, which is when you let way too many people come in for way too long and don't plan it accordingly, it's like you said, there's not enough housing, there's not enough infrastructure, there's not enough
correct.
healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. And now my biggest concern is because we let in too many people and now they're really struggling to get PR and now some of them are starting to have to go home, it actually hurts brand Canada. And like you said, now, you know, prospective international students are starting to ask, well, is it even worth it to go to Canada?
Yeah.
And I think a big shame is a lot of Canadians are thinking, hey, that's a good thing. We need to slow it down. We don't need people here. But I think in the long run, it's a bad thing because at some point, the industry is going to shift and we're going to need talented people. And we don't have enough babies in Canada, right? We need immigrants. Doesn't matter how much you dislike immigration,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
We need
Yes.
immigrants. Otherwise, we'll be in a population decline. The best way
Correct.
is to get the skilled and talented ones. But if your brand gets hurt so much, the most skilled and talented immigrants are going to go
Hello.
to other countries, right? So what are we going to do in 2, 3, 5 years when we wake up and realize, hey, we actually do need a lot of these people, but the smart ones aren't coming here, right? So anyways, I just went on a bit of a
Yeah.
rant there. Does that make sense? Do you agree, like based on what you're seeing and hearing or have seen and heard, is that kind of in line with what you might think as well?
Yes. So what I think is that if not until now, I think the government should still do something. And what I can suggest, if I'm allowed to, is that maybe even if we don't like it, introduce like a interview based system if necessary, because Canada is very multicultural. And what I have seen, like Canada has always been so welcoming. People are nice. I live in Quebec. I live in Montreal. People are very welcoming. So Canadians in general are very much polite and welcoming. So not everybody or not everyone from other countries is coming from the same mindset. So we really need to make sure that there's a vigilant process to scrutinize and to filter the right quality of students or workers or permanent residents. It's not just that you can just base somebody on their academic levels or education, professional background. You also need to see their mindset, that are they really integrating into the society? Are they giving back to the society, or they are exploiting our system?
Do
You
you
see what I'm
think
trying to say?
do you think for the
Yeah.
interviews, because I think interviews are a good idea, but can they be practically applied at scale? I don't know. Do you think they should be done by schools or by IRCC or both or someone else? Who do you think should be in charge of the interviews?
See, what I would say, like, I guess I'm not at the top level leadership with IRCC or the government of Canada. But if we if we see that immigrants are the most important thing for our country, then we should establish a process around it. I mean, there are plenty tech smarties around there. They'll definitely find out a way. US has an interview-based immigration system, right? If not a personal interview, at least we can have some psychometric tests or some other form of test which can validate like what kind of immigrants we are letting in. Because I feel that Canada has given me and my family a lot. So I don't like that people are exploiting the system. We have various problems to conquer, and Canada, come on, it is the second largest country on earth by surface area. Like we have like we can be a great country, so we should focus on real problems. For God's sake,
Yeah.
not small problems. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and I agree with the integration piece, right? Like until maybe 2018, 2019, 2020, when the numbers started to get out of control, I think
Mhm.
you're right. Like the integration wasn't really a concern, partly because the numbers were under control, right? We weren't letting in 600,000 international students a year and really not vetting them much, right? Like
Correct.
it's kind of crazy, man. In the last year, like you and I have been in Canada for a while. I've been in Canada since, the day I was born. And there was never a problem with integration. The numbers were low, and the people who immigrated to Canada, they had to go through a process. It was difficult. It took time. They got here. They appreciated it so much. And obviously, people bring some semblance
Correct.
of their culture and their food and their behavior. That, of course, they're humans, right? But they also made a really good effort to respect and integrate into Canada. And it made for an amazing country. This, like, as they say, right? This melting pot of amazing cultures and people and food and behavior and religion and et cetera, et cetera. I think what happened is the numbers got so big and out of control and they virtually stopped vetting people that we lost some of that, right? We
Correct.
lost that appreciation for the difficulty of actually getting to a country like Canada and actually integrating into it as a small fish in a big pond, as opposed to the opposite. So I do like the idea of interview and or as you said, like a psychoanalytic test or I don't know what the name is or some way you could do it at scale, maybe leveraging AI or something like. I mean,
Yeah.
IRCC is already using AI with Chinook, right? Not saying
Even.
it's being applied very well, but
And we are increasing we are increasing employment, man. This way.
yeah, I mean, creating jobs, so that's another thing too. But is the concern there? Because like you and I have spoken about this before. Now we're seeing a huge increase, and I just saw an article this week, a huge increase in visa refusals. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
specifically because of AI and Chinook, or it's specifically because there's just, we have these new caps, and or specifically because IRCC is like, hey, we have new caps, start rejecting people, everyone. Like, what are you seeing on the ground? And is that also a reason why do you think students are maybe not as excited about Canada because of those visa refusal rates?
So visa restrictions could be one thing, but I don't think that is largely a reason at this point of time. I think more of other countries have taken this opportunity. Like let's say other European countries, they have started coming in, like, and people have started exploring options because they don't, how should I say, they don't charge tuition fees as much. And so people are looking for other options. However, like even now, whatever changes have come in, like let's say we talk about the changes related to adding an education category to the express entry system, it is a good move. The only sad fact that I identify is that like this could have been introduced a long time ago because early child educators was always a program of colleges, right? So another thing that the government could do is that skill trades. Most of the skill trades require you like having more than 5 years of experience. Can we do something about it? So I mean, I respect laws and I understand regulations, but if regulations are becoming a problem for your progress, for your economy, should we think about it? Should we ponder on that? Should we reconsider? I definitely feel so because we are just like, I mean, how should I say? My wife is an architect and she studied masters in urban design from McGill. However, to practice as an architect is not as easy. So she might need to go through another evaluation, study another several courses, and again clear that exam and then be eligible for becoming an architect. Let alone the fact that she needs to be an intern architect for several years before she can get the title of an architect. So, I mean, like, I don't want, or even I don't think she wants that she gets to the age of 50 and then she becomes excited about, yeah, I'm an architect, you know?
Yeah.
So we should definitely do something about it. We all know that we need a lot of homes, lot of houses, not just this profession. There are plenty others. So I definitely feel there's a great room for improvement. We just need the right people, right ambitious people in these positions. And also, like I would encourage like people like professionals, not just RCICs and lawyers who have the who are in positions of power to influence all levels of government to make transformatory changes, like immediately. Like let's say if I was given an opportunity to become a prime minister, I don't know, like for maybe a few days or whatnot, I would definitely reduce taxes in any way possible on personal income at this point of time. If you're telling me plenty and plenty of people are lining up the food bank, I would rather not focus on climate change temporarily and focus on removing homeless people from streets, right?
Well,
And
and not
rather
even
focus on
that.
creating
It's
jobs.
it's people who are renting, but their
Yeah,
incomes, they might even have a decent income, but now it's so expensive in Canada that if you make an
yeah.
average income and have to pay the
My God.
taxes, the sales tax, the this tax, the carbon tax,
Welcome tax. Welcome tax.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
Well,
so I agree. Can you continue that thought, Ronak, in terms of how about this? What if you woke up tomorrow as the immigration
Mhm,
minister? What are maybe two,
mhm.
three, four things you would do in terms of changing immigration to help hopefully benefit the industry?
So, frankly speaking, like I mean, this could be a long list, and I don't think I have prepared on that. But yes,
Just a few.
immediately, if I yes, immediately, what I would do is that strongest forms of business immigration, may it be at provincial levels or at startup visa levels, like I would want them to introduce transformatory changes. That being said, cut the processing times in less than 6 months if possible. Return back the fees whichever has been asked of, whichever has been charged to the clients whose applications have been in the pool for like 4 5 years now. Do something about it. So business immigration would be one, and I would consult all provinces in like what are the needs of, let's say, Saskatchewan, what are the needs of Atlantic provinces, maybe Alberta, Quebec, and on the basis of which, like if necessary, I would held a roundtable conferences of all the possible provincial ministers and look for recommendations. What else we could have done? Again, improve the healthcare system in any way possible. Talk to industry leaders, experts, and see how can we reduce the wait times in surgeries, in elderly care homes, in hospitals. Improve the healthcare system in any way possible. See, and again, another thing I would do, no, like this could be an unpopular opinion, but like just a classic example. Like, yes, I'm an Indo-Canadian, but if you see about the conversation that happened between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Trump, like Trump tells that he's a big negotiator. Just imagine what he did. Like day before yesterday, I read the news that Prime Minister Modi is in conversation with European Union for a free trade agreement, and it has to be finalized by the end of this year. And this conversation was backdated in 2013, but then it got called off. And now again, this is a classic move that I would say. So that being said, I don't think India should be your enemy at this point of time. Like India should be Canada's best friend, if not, I mean, not just best friend, one of the good friends if possible. And for the right reasons, if they think that India falls into this category, then why not? Because there's a lot of data to say that. And not just India, there are many other countries, citizens of which like who are very, very hardworking and really willing to contribute to the Canadian fabric. Not just finding ways. I've seen so many people, I don't know how many ways are there into the Canadian system where people try to maximize the output that they can reap from the government rather than what they can contribute.
Yeah.
So this is not something good, I feel. This would not lead Canada to the trajectory of growth. Rather, it would lead to its downfall. I definitely can see that. I mean, reward people for the hard work that they are doing, not for sitting at homes, not for just producing children.
Well,
I
children are
mean,
important, but yes, I totally agree. If we rewind
ch-
the clock to 2015-ish, and I would,
yes,
especially because that aligns well with Express Entry, which I still think is a great permanent residence program. that is actually how our system was designed and was working pretty well for a few years, right? Like
Hmm.
Indians
Yeah.
have made up the majority of immigrants for years and years. Why has the
Hmm.
sentiment changed in the last 1 or 2 years? It's because our system, right? Like I agree with you. I think Canada and India should have strong ties. I don't know if our current leadership can foster that, which is one of the many reasons. I don't want to get too political here, but one of the many reasons why I
Yeah.
think we need new leadership in government. But you can't deny that India has sent tons and tons of extremely smart and hardworking people here. The problem is that in the late 20 teens and early 2020s, because of our system and not enough regulation and not enough vetting, we let in too many people, especially from certain areas, but they were just it was the system. It was the system in place, right?
Correct.
It was the system
Yes.
in place. So yes, there are some people who are taking advantage of it, and that's not good. But if we want the best and brightest, we can get the best and brightest. We just have to put in place
Correct.
the proper rules and
Correct.
regulations and
Right
actually
processes.
enforce them.
And yes, I would also like to add that yes, while the system was lacking the right processes and procedures, I also say that yes, not all immigrants, including India, that come from there, not all are with the right mindset. Some people are of the mindset that they want to exploit the situation in every manner possible. So this is why these processes could have helped navigate or even troubleshoot these issues well in advance. I mean, so
For
now
sure.
Canada is in such a difficult position that, like, I'm 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 anticipating a lot of interesting updates. Recently, I posted an article like yesterday or the day before yesterday also that considering the political speculation, I think that there might be some public policies that would allow work permit like temporary foreign workers whose work permits are expiring to let them stay by allowing them for a temporary extension so that some votes could come in. This is
You
how
you
I
you
also speculate.
you think that's what they'll be implementing soon?
I I think I don't know what is the right time. What I gauge is that it could happen all at the time of decision making, all at the time of right at the time of elections.
Right.
There is a possibility. There is
But
a possibility.
but
Again, this is a speculation.
here's the interesting dichotomy there is a lot of Canadians, I'm not saying I'm one of them, a lot of Canadians are anti-immigration right now. So there's like kind of
Yes.
two ways to think about it. If you put in a
Yes.
super pro immigration policy, yes, you're going to gain some votes from recent immigrants because those temporary permit holders, they can't vote, right? They can't vote in the election.
Yes, yes.
So
But they can influence.
right. So, like, do you want to try and win the votes of their family and friends while maybe turning off some Canadians who are anti immigration? Or do you want to leave it as is and appease
Yes.
those anti immigration people, but turn off the people who are saying, hey, we have all these family and friends and they're in expiring permits. And why is Canada saying no to them all of a sudden after all these promises? Right. So, like, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I don't know. Are
Yes,
you pretty
exactly.
confident? Like you think they'll do a work permit extension because there's so many people, like you said, who are going to have expiring permits over the next year or two?
See, I don't know, like, but some of the changes that are happening, I'm not sure I'm an expert into geopolitical relations or policy making or politics or whatnot, but certain changes don't make sense to me.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, Canada is very friendly, and I have always been very appreciative of the welcoming nature of Canadians and the government inclusive. But at this point of time, we need to look back into our society that if the citizens are not getting the right jobs or right healthcare or basic necessary services like food, they have to rely on food bank. In that case, should we regulate the asylum system or should we temporarily freeze it to an extent? I don't know. I am not an expert into this, but I would think about my fellow citizens at this point of time. Again, try to help them in the best way possible. Try to reduce homeless people on the street, get them into jobs as much as possible, have more and more businesses flourishing in Canada, help them with entrepreneurship centers, in incubators, angel investors in any and every way possible to make these businesses run so fast so that they can employ these many individuals. And this is why I love Quebec. They know how to take care of their people and they know how to strategize. And I don't see jobs are an issue in Quebec. Look at the Employ Quebec website. You will see plenty of jobs. I mean, and we need to encourage people. We need to motivate people to, or incentivize rather, to work harder. I think if necessary, this is one of thought that came to my mind that let's say if we want immigrants to integrate into the fabric of Canadian society, what we could also do is that there are a lot of elderly people who stay at home, who have big houses, or let's say even in rental apartments, wherever possible. Maybe the government should work with provincial governments so that they should incentivize temporary foreign workers in terms of tax incentives, that if they can rent alongside them and if possible, in any way possible, to take care of their elders. If in any way possible, I don't know the process around it, but imagine if something like this happens, then the immigrant who is coming to Canada, he can benefit the values, or how should I say, the Canadian culture and integrate much better. And alongside, like we could reduce depression, loneliness, and other such mental health issues that are prevalent in Canada for a long time, right? So we should incentivize in that manner because we know that that is also a problem. I hope I'm making sense here, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of like the two big themes that I take away from your last message is number one, and I agree with both of them. Number one is you got to look after your house before you can start letting in guests, right? Like
Charity
Canada
begins
is
at home, my friend.
exactly, and we haven't really been doing much of that over the last few years. So I agree with that. And number two, just being much more strategic with immigration, which I agree with. A lot of what the government's done has been reactive, right? Oh, hey, we didn't do anything for
Absolutely.
8 years. Now it's a mess. Okay, like I actually like a lot of the changes they've made in the last year or two.
Yes.
But like you said earlier on, they were 5, 10 years too late, right? So I hope it
Yet,
hasn't caused too much damage. So, anyways,
like the most recent, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think the other thing too that you kind of alluded to that I just want to spell out is like recertification, right? As you said, we're really lacking in healthcare in certain areas, but as you mentioned, for certain especially jobs that require certifications, architects, nurses, blah blah blah, it takes 2, 3, 8, 5, 10 years to get recertified. There's brilliant nurses and PSWs and
Yeah.
doctors who want to come to Canada and work here, but it takes them 12 and a half years to get recertified, right? So
And
if
they drive
that can be
Ubers then.
exactly, if that can be optimized, we could solve a lot of problems too. So anyways, this has been great, Ronak. I really like a lot of what you're saying. Hopefully some people agree and or are listening and the government can get a little bit more creative and proactive to trying to tackle these problems. My last question is, what would you say, what would you like to leave the audience with? Whether it be maybe there's some people inside Canada who are on the fence, or they're pro immigration, not pro, their sentiment is shifted, and or
Mhm.
what's also a message you would give to maybe prospective immigrants abroad who's seeing all this and they're like, I don't know if Canada's is appealing right now. Like, what would you say to those two parties?
I would say like one thing for people who are inside Canada, I believe like it goes to both immigrants as well as who are born Canadians. I think both the parties should make equal efforts to communicate more often. Hey, normally I have always been very communicative. I am a very social animal, you if you want to say it. So since the time I was a student, as an international student, I had a lot many Canadian friends and I would integrate with them. I would go to parties, I would go to picnics and gel alongside. So that was never a problem for me. But it is not always necessary that it is the same for every immigrant. So I think if both parties can make some efforts, I think we can do a great job there. And I also think that immigrants who came from different parts of the world in Canada, they should stop bringing their problems from their home countries here in Canada because Canada itself has its own problems and like Canada is welcoming immigrants from all around the world. So yes, everybody would want certain problems to be solved, but let's focus on putting Canada first and then the other problems. the country as a whole and not just one particular country from where you belong or where you come from. Right. So that is my message. And again, to all prospective immigrants who are planning to come to Canada, I honestly believe that Canadians are great. Canadians are very welcoming and very soft spoken and polite. I just feel that many are not aware, or how should I say, many are not integrated well, in a sense that I think it is to us as immigrants also that we should take conscious efforts to blend with them and also provide them an opportunity to blend with us too. In this way, it could be a great mix, and Canada again can be a great brand. And I have no doubts about it. Like, I mean, we have every opportunity to grow. We have huge lands. We have the opportunity. We have the right talent. I mean, we can get talent from across the world. What more do you want? You can establish a system to get the right, best possible talent, incentivize businesses, benefit like individuals in every way possible. And yes, reduce taxes, man. Reduce taxes as much as you can. As much as you can.
Amen. Amen. I think we need to attract
Yes.
the right people and job creators. And too many
And
taxes and regulations, it's pushing them away. So, anyways,
we
great note
need
to end on. Ronak, want to thank you again for coming on the show. If anybody wants to get in touch with you or maybe check out your business or your website, where do you recommend that they go?
So rooton.ca, ROOTO as in orange and as in Nancy .ca. So rooton.ca is our website, and you can reach out to me at ronak.patel at rooton.ca. And I would be more than happy to help you in any way possible.
Awesome. And I will have links to that in the description below. I'll also throw a link to Ronak's LinkedIn as well. I highly recommend
Awesome.
connecting or following
I
him there.
think you're cutting.
He posts some pretty good and
Yes.
thought-provoking content there as well. Ronak, thanks again for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Much pleasure, Josh. Thanks for having me. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye.